Good morning, everybody. First of all, thanks for your patience. Thank you all for being here. I want to just tell you that we got my executive team here, all of our two executive assistant chiefs, and I think all 8 of the assistant chiefs are here. We're all housed in the building. So for the people that really don't like the police and always try to figure out a way to criticize us, no, we're not wasting time. We're all in the same building. They didn't make special trips, and so tweet away. So good morning. I want to say, first of all, the good news is that we're on the right track in a lot of ways in this city. This city continues to grow. I want to say that our mayor, Sylvester Turner, and his council colleagues really consider public safety being their #1 mission. I think the reason we formed government in the first place is for the safety of the commune. That's why we form communities. And when I got hired by Mayor Turner in November of 2016, on November 30th, 2016, his #1 charge to me, or 2 charges. Number 1, you're coming into a city that because of the revenue cap, we're really an artificially cash-starved city. I'm a little concerned now we have the governor talking about, who obviously doesn't have to run a city, talking about further reducing the ability of cities to function, to be safe by proposing a 2.5% revenue cap on cities. Pretty easy to do when you're sitting at a Capitol building and don't have to respond to crime scenes day in and day out, to shooting scenes, to murder scenes, to sexual assault scenes, to domestic violence scenes, to the scenes of our fellow Texans that are being victimized, not just here in Houston, but throughout the state of Texas, to further cripple the ability of cities to keep people safe. I think would be irresponsible, and I just hope that the political theater is just that, and that's not something that happens. Because as you know, that what we're going to talk about today in terms of our crime numbers for 2017 are, despite the fact that we are a department that is probably 2,000 to 3,000 officers short of where we should be. We're a department that serves a city of 640 square miles, almost 2.5 million people, fastest growing big city of 2 million or more in this country. And we're at about 5,100 police officers. Contrast that to the city of Chicago, that's about 2.7 million people, with a city of about 248 square miles that have 13,000 police officers. And if you look at the city of New York, you know, they have an army, so they're in the low 30,000 rate. And if you look at the Los Angeles Police Department, they're close to 10,000 officers for a city of about 400 square miles, maybe a little bigger than that. So we're a huge city, a fast-growing city, and we're at 5,100 officers. So let's go over the stats. The good news is that the overall crime report in the city of Houston is down 2.1%. Again, I give credit to the leadership in this department, to the fact that at the direction of Mayor Turner, we were to re-engineer the department, try to do more with less, which is something that unfortunately we have to do, and try to build upon the public trust and obviously the professionalism of the police department. And so I give the credit to the leaders, but most importantly the men and women on the front lines, both in uniform and the support staff or non-sworn team that do a phenomenal job of supporting our mission. The one crime that you don't come back from is murder. And the good news is, on the murder front, we recorded 269 murders last year. 269 murders when, as you will recall, probably about 10, 15 years ago, the Rand Corporation put the economic toll, loss, cost of every homicide at $1 million. We were able to reduce murders last year by 32. That's 32 Houstonians, a 10.6% reduction in murders, and that's something we should all celebrate. Because, as you know, murder impacts this entire community, and I'll get into some statistics on that here in a minute. In terms of our murders that we're at 269, people need to know that about 53 of those murders, at minimum of 53, were gang-related, which equates to almost 20% of our murders are gang-related. We know we have about 20,000 documented gang members in the city of Houston, and again, 53 of our murders were gang-related. Unfortunately, 16% of our murders, or 43, were family violence related, and that's at least 43 or 16% were family violence related, which is very sad because you all know that we're on the verge, and in the next week or two, hopefully before the end of the month, we will launch our new absolute zero tolerance stand here in stance at the Houston Police Department with the support of the Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg. We will announce that before the end of this month, and we'll give people details. But for the family violence that's occurring out there, 43 people lost their lives last year with family violence was part of it. Murder-suicides, sadly, we lost 9 people to murder-suicides. If you remember I think it was the last day of the year, we had a workplace violence where we lost some members of our community at an auto parts store. It was an auto parts store, something of that nature, and then the individual took his life. So 9 murders were related to a murder-suicide situation. And when you're involved in illicit activities such as narcotics, we know that when you're involved in that kind of stuff, you live by the sword, you die by the sword, and 6.32% or 17 of the murders were narcotics related. And the last one that really can impact any of us, which is probably the greatest indicator of a stranger on stranger and a person that's not involved in a gang or in narcotics, would be our murders from robberies, which is really truly probably the one that's more of a stranger on stranger that can impact anybody in the city of Houston. And that was 20 murders, which equates to about 7.43%. At least 35% of our victims knew their assailants. At least 35%. The murder criminal histories. Let me just give you this on the murder victims' criminal histories, just to give you a snapshot of our victim profile, if that makes any sense to you all. About 52% of our murder victims had, and we're not trying to demonize people or saying anything other than, I think it's really important, if we're going to fight crime and be data-driven, intelligence-led, you have to have a profile on your suspects and a profile on your victims. And our murder victims, the 141 or 52.42% had felony convictions, 55 or 20.45% had misdemeanor convictions, so 73% of our murder victims had a criminal history. No prior criminal history was about 27% of the total. I think that's important for folks to know in terms of knowing a victim profile. The other thing that is important, we talk a lot this here in the city of Houston, is our suspects. 10% of our suspects were on probation. That's a total of 19. 5%, a total of 9, were on parole, and 5%, 10, were on bond. So 10 people were murdered by folks that are out on bond. I think it's important for our community to know. So that's, I think, what I want to highlight on murders. Again, the majority of our murders, a good chunk of people knew the suspect. And sadly, a big percentage involved domestic violence. Now, robberies. Another area where we saw a reduction is in robberies, which we had a 1.9% reduction in robberies, and that included 200 fewer robbery victims that reported this past year as compared to 2016. Again, that's a win for the people of Houston, because robberies, you normally don't rob somebody you know. You normally rob somebody you don't know. It's truly a stranger-on-stranger crime. In terms of nonviolent crimes, which is the type of crime that most Houstonians are impacted by, is nonviolent crime. Overall, our nonviolent crimes are down 4.3%, which equates to 7.4% reduction in burglaries, an 8.9% reduction in auto thefts, and thefts are down 2.6%. Now, that's really important because, again, that's the type of crime that impacts most Houstonians. Having said that, there is one crime that we call jugging, when these predators actually follow somebody after they go to the ATM. And we had a very sad case involving an elderly 75-year-old man who was murdered gassing up by a jugger recently. We consider that a violent crime. We're working with the DA's office and our judge court to consider that a violent crime, because just like we've said that those crimes Those juggers too often are hurting people, fighting people, and now murdering people. We want to make sure we work with the DA's office to start treating those juggers differently. And I think in this year, in 2018, you're going to see the criminal justice system coming down hard on juggers. As a matter of fact, we've actually talked with Senator Whitmire, who's the Dean of the Senate and in charge of the Criminal Justice Committee, to see in the next legislative session how we can tighten up and really hammer down on people that are going around as predators, following people around from the ATMs and committing these juggers. So that's kind of the good news. The bad news is that our sexual assaults, again, show an increase of 12.6%. Which is, something that we're concerned about. It actually went from 1,224 rapes in 2016 up 12.6% to 1,378 rapes in 2017, which is, again, an increase of 12.6%. And our aggravated assaults went up by 13.8%. Aggravated assaults were 12,486 in 2016, and they went up to 14,208 in 2017. Now, the piece about aggravated assaults that is something that I think speaks very much as to society and the fact that we've lost the art of disagreeing without becoming disagreeable. We've lost the art of respect for one another, not just in society in general. You think about when we all grew up and as kids, you didn't bring a knife to a disagreement. You didn't bring a gun to a disagreement. A lot of the gun violence that we see today is crimes of passion, where somebody knows somebody, have an argument, next thing you know, they bring out a gun, they just shoot somebody, or they just stab somebody, or get a bat and hit over their head. That was unheard of when we were kids, and there's just something going on in society. The good news is that although aggravated assaults are up 13.8%, 70%, basically 70% of the victims of aggravated assault knew the suspect. So that's not a policing issue. That's really a societal issue. That's really an issue of how we interact with one another, with our own families, with our neighbors, with our coworkers, with our friends. Because when 70% of people are committing aggravated assaults on people they know, that doesn't speak to policing. That doesn't speak to laws. That speaks to human decency in the way we treat each other. So we're really challenging our community this year that the police aren't going to be the ones that reduce aggravated assaults. We need to take ownership for our own actions. One argument at a time, one disagreement at a time, right? And start treating each other with decency. And understand that it's okay to turn around and walk away rather than to get a chair and break it over somebody's head, or to get a knife and stab somebody, or to let the emotion get a hold of you, and next thing you know, you're doing something that you will regret for the rest of your life. Because if we know that 70% know the assailant, that means that we're going to identify 70% of the suspects, catch them, take them to prison. So let's all work on controlling our emotions, on knowing how to turn the other cheek like we were told as people of faith, and know how to walk away. And I also think it speaks as to the challenge of mental health and addiction in our community, where there's an intersection between mental health and addiction, where we know that sometimes when you can't control your emotions, it's a mental health issue or it's an addiction issue. So that's the good news on aggravated assault. And the other piece is we know that when we first started 2017 that we saw, and not just from data but anecdotally, that the Hispanic community, because of Senate Bill 4, the anti-sanctuary city, the so-called anti-sanctuary city bill, there was a lot of fear in this community. And we have worked so hard as a police department, starting with the police chief, who is an immigrant himself and speaks Spanish, to let people know that we're the Houston Police Department. We're not interested in immigration status of people that, but for their immigration status, are responsible members of society. We've had programs like the Alianza program, where we're educating the community about the fact that we take pride in the fact that we came up with the model, we chase crooks, not cooks, in the Houston Police Department. We believe that that's leading to people finally realizing it's okay to report crime. It's okay to come forward as a witness. It's okay to stand up for my neighbor, my family, my friends, and a stranger, because HPD is only interested in justice, not immigration agents. And so I think that that's having a positive impact. And so with that, one of the things I think it's really important for us to understand is that we've made a lot of changes. We created the Major Assaults Unit. We've adjusted personnel hours, close investigative, and now with our leveling, where we're moving patrol resources around based on data and not on, well, a station lost, you know, academy class comes out, and instead of looking at data, we just can have no rhyme or reason as to how we were assigning people. We are now very much data-driven. But at the end of the day, if you look at the fact that we're still doing a pretty good job on our response times in terms of our Code 1, which is our lights and sirens, somebody's life is in danger right now, where we kind of slip from 5.4 to 5.5 response time, 1.85%, and we stayed flat on our Code 2 response times that are pretty serious calls. We are doing really poorly on the lower level calls. That's Code 3, Code 4, and Code 5, where the Code 3's response times went down 10.32%, Code 4's 9%, and Code 5's 12%. Let me just say to that is that I'm sorry. I'm sorry we can't get to the lower level calls, the stale burglary of residents, the loud neighbor call, the fireworks call, the loud dog, barking dog calls, the calls that, while no lives may be at risk, those calls are quality of life calls for our people, for our community. You should be able to sleep at night without a neighbor's dog barking all night long, or without loud music at a neighborhood party all night long. But when we're working patrol, we have to prioritize our calls. And I'm sorry, but when you're down to 5,100 officers in 2018, in a city that 20 years ago had 500,000 fewer residents but 300 more cops, that doesn't add up. And you can only squeeze so much out of this and make so much lemon out of a department we call the Houston Police Department. We're out of not only lemon, we're down to the lemon peel. Okay? That's what we're down to. And I can't make lemonade with lemon peel. You just can't do it. No matter how good your cops are, no matter how dedicated they are, we can't do it. So I want to apologize ahead of time, because we get beat up for those calls, but it is what it is. When we have shootings dropping, or we have aggravated assaults dropping, we have robberies dropping, we cannot preempt those calls that go to a quality of life call. So with that, I think I hit just about all the major points for now. Let me just say one last thing that is really important on the SB 4 stuff. We looked at the data last week, and we created a policy where we're going to make the inquiry outside of an arrest situation about the status of one of our individuals, members of our community that we come in contact with about their immigration status. You have to write a report. We have a code for it. I'm happy to say that we've had 2 inquiries since September of this year. And that was as of the end of the week last week. So for those that were afraid that we were going to become immigration agents, the data speaks for itself. We've had 2 inquiries. And then from a federal standpoint, just in case you were wondering, we have our own jail here, as you all know, in the Houston Police Department that we won't have probably by June or July. We'll have the new jail with the county. But we had a total of 5 ICE requests, ICE detainer holds for the entire calendar year of 2017. So again, for the community that's afraid of the Houston Police Department, please come forward. We're here to bring justice to the victims of crime and those that would victimize members of our community. We want to bring those suspects, those criminals, to justice. And so with that, we'll open up to any questions.
Chief, you talked about just clearance rates for 2017. Are you happy with those?
No, you know, our clearance rates, I think on our homicide rates, we're doing pretty good. I think when you look at our property crime rates, Unfortunately, because of resources and we have to prioritize violent crime, we're probably not where we need to be at this point. But that the sad truth is, in a world of limited resources, we have to prioritize. So I think we can do better with clearance rates. It's something we're going to track in our CompStat that I don't think we tracked very closely recently. Actually, I don't have my clearance rates with me, but I think we need to do better. And our hope is to continue to do better as we leverage technology. We have, because I'm out there, right, at the national level, we have, from the ATF, we'll be having our mobile NIVIN van coming, which means we'll be able to run ballistics tests and actually put the casings that we find out in the field, run them through NIVIN immediately out in the field. We have been testing rapid DNA here, which we can actually do a swab at a crime scene. We can have the machine at the crime scene or bring it back to homicide, and within 90 minutes have a profile. As a matter of fact, I just sent a letter this week to the director of the FBI and to Attorney General Sessions, urging them. The science is here. The science is here. It's time for rapid DNA to be part of the solution. We know that anybody that watches CSI Miami, Los Angeles, New York, Las Vegas, you know, we're going to bring a DNA show here, you know, CSI Houston someday. We all know that rapid DNA is the future, and the future is here now. And what we need for the FBI director and what we need for the Attorney General Sessions is to move the ball forward. We have to have the next step, which is access to CODIS with our rapid DNA profiles that we have, because otherwise we can't completely exploit this science. And we need to have it. We can do the traditional tests for purposes of prosecution. We can do that separate, but for purposes of the investigation, we need to be able to access CODIS with rapid DNA. It's been used by the military very effectively for quite a while, and we've been testing it now for about a year here. But in order to fully exploit rapid DNA, you want to see property crimes, clearance rates go up very quickly, but more importantly, homicides, sexual assaults, and other crimes. These shootings go up quickly. These two things that we're working on are going to make a difference.
You talk about manpower being part of the issue.
Yeah.
How do you fix that?
We like to call it staffing, because we're very inclusive in honor of the Women's March here. Right. So in fact, we're the only police department in the nation, big city department, where all three of our patrol chiefs, all patrols handled by women, not because they're women. They handle patrol despite being women in a profession that has always been very male-dominated. I'm really proud of our Wonder Women here. Wonder Woman has nothing on these three. They're fantastic. Now, these guys I don't know about, but the women are great. I'm kidding. What else?
So staffing.
What was your question?
The question was about staffing. How do you address that then?
Well, you know, one of the things that Mayor Turner has been talking about is that 2018 is a year where we have to have a conversation with this community. It's interesting to me that everywhere I go, I talk about our staffing. Our community has no idea as to just how small this department really is. I mean, think about it. Los Angeles, 10,000. New York, Chicago, 13,000. New York, 30-something thousand. Houston, 5,100, which makes you think, Houston, we got a problem, and it's staffing. And I believe that the people of Houston put a high premium in their collective safety and in public safety. And I strongly believe that if we educate our community on the challenges, you know, could you imagine if we had 2,000 more cops, what we'd be talking about today, where we should be? Could you imagine what we could do? We reduced violent murders by 32 lives. We saved 32 lives. But the number one deterrent to any criminal offense is a highly visible police presence. Okay? I'm not going to go rob the store when I see a cop car right by it. When you're all at work and we have regular patrols driving around neighborhoods, guess what I'm not going to burglarize? But that requires bodies. And I think this year, with the leadership of Mayor Turner and the trust that we're building with this community, we're going to be able to hopefully address that sometime this year.
It sounds like Acevedo wants more officers. Is Acevedo going to get more officers from the mayor?
Look, ultimately it's going to be up to the taxpayers. I love the, the mayor was meeting with some folks the other day, and, you got people like, Senator Betancourt, who I don't know who he represents. I don't think he represents anybody that wants public safety in Houston, because his answer to everything is smaller government. Well, I got news for him. Tell that to his constituents when they're calling 911 and it's taking us, 2-3 hours to get there with the burglary. Or when they're calling 911 at night because there's a loud party and we don't get there at all. It's going to take the community weighing in. And it's going to take the community, I'm a Houstonian. And if I've got to pay a little bit more of my taxes to get the level of staffing we need here, I'm going to pay that level. I'm willing to pay it. So I believe in this community. I believe that they have the intellect to see when we have need. And what the mayor tells people, he was telling some folks the other day, hey, come on in, look at our budget. Show me where the fat is. There is none here. I don't know where it's at. You guys, our budget's a public document. Anybody listening, if you think that you have the magic pill where we can do more with this little budget we have, let me know, because I'm not proud. Just show me where it's at. Show me where the fat is. We're out of fat. I mean, we're down the bone. And it's not Acevedo that wants more cops. It's Acevedo who wants to educate the community on just how lean we are. Because I don't think people realize how lean we are. Do you? What do you think, Fody?
I mean, you're going to have to ask for it, right? I mean, aren't you going to have to get with the mayor and figure out a plan if he's going to raise the tax rate and raise taxes? I mean, that's ultimately a conversation you're going to have.
Ultimately, it's going to be up to the mayor to come up with that. That's one of the reasons I came here is that I think we have a mayor that is a fiscal conservative. I mean, you talk to anybody that was at the state. Some people try to paint him as liberal Democrat. That man is tough on crime, and he's a fiscal conservative. Trust us, we're the ones always asking for something. He's tough. He's a tough boss. But he understands this is not sustainable. We can't continue to be the fastest growing big city of 2 million or more in the country and not grow the police department. It just doesn't work. We can't have 500,000 more people and 300 fewer cops. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. What do you think? What's your name again?
Tom.
Huh?
Tom.
You don't have a last name?
Tom Abrams.
Okay, you've asked your 2 questions. We're done with you. We're almost as lean as the top of Fody's head there. I mean, all that hair. Huh?
Taking a lot of
You're a
shots
mess.
at the governor, about-
Shots?
Oh, come on. I mean, I guess my question is, you've stepped up your criticism and on the need to repeal the revenue cap and all that sort of stuff. But what else are you going to try to do in Austin to make sure that message really gets through?
I don't think it's up to what I'm going to do. It's what are the people of Texas going to do? We need to pay attention to what's going on. There's a lot of political theater in this state. I mean, they're already talking about bringing back the bathroom bill again. Really? Is that the most important thing? The potty police bill again? Seriously? We got to speak out. And I know, and you know what people think, they make assumptions about me. I'm a center-right guy. I'm a pretty conservative guy. But I'm also a call BS when I see it guy. And then they try to say that, oh, well, the police chief's just saying what the mayor's saying. And I'll tell you again, the reason I'm here is because the mayor offered me the job. I did my homework. He vetted me, but I vetted him. He's right on the issues. If the mayor was felt that we needed to have SB4 and that was his position instead of a welcoming city, if the mayor felt that, guns belong in everybody's hands, constitutional carry, it's our God-given right, whether we're a felon or not, whether we're a wife beater or not, it's my God-given right, I wouldn't be here. Because I can't succeed if my boss and I don't have shared values, right? But it's important for us to continue to speak out. It's really easy to cap the heck out of everything when you don't have to respond to anything. When we can't call, it's not Austin that gets the calls from people that are the victims of crime. It's not Austin that gets the calls when the police department's taking 10 hours to get a burglary scene. It's the mayor, it's the local police chiefs. We should not try to run local governments from the state of Texas. And they should be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Anything else?
Do you think that Hurricane Harvey had an impact on any of these crime statistics?
We know that Hurricane Harvey had an impact probably on some of our response times data, and we also know that we had at one point we were down 60%, 62% on our murders, and we were doing really well. Probably leading into Harvey, we were probably still mid 40s.
were down 62, not percent. But
62 homicides, excuse me.
62.
We were doing really good in terms of the percentages and the numbers, 62 murders at one point down, but after Harvey, it trended upward, then we were able to tap it down. Now, I've got a plan that Chief Finner and Chief Slinker put together that we'll be giving to the mayor to see how we can leverage some additional funding to try to continue to clamp down, especially as it starts warming up and we know what happens when it warms up. So, yeah, Harvey, yes, sir.
Any specifics on that plan?
Not yet. We'll let you know when it's public. It's draft.
Before you got here, the police department disbanded the IFR division, which had handled a lot of domestic violence cases. And you're mentioning again what a role that played in last year's homicides. So I'm just wondering what do you see, what concrete steps do you see to try and continue to combat domestic violence?
Well, my concrete steps is when we go to the domestic violence scene and there's any evidence of domestic violence, somebody's going to jail. Because the one thing that I know is that on that night, nobody's going to the morgue, right? And once you get in the criminal justice system, if you're having problems with domestic violence at home, now we have tools that we can use to try to get people the counseling they need, the emotional support that they need to try to resolve and learn how to communicate. So that's coming. We'll probably, I think it's the 29th when we'll have our, when is it, the 29th, the press conference with the DA?
Yes, sir.
It's coming up. We're finalizing our procedures now. And we're going to be doing some other things that we'll talk about later. No, I want to talk about today.
And that move which you just mentioned, that's something that is currently done in California, correct?
Well, by state law here, when you go to domestic violence, state law requires a what? Anybody?
Lethality assessment?
When you go to domestic violence scene, state law requires us to do what? Anybody want to know? Huh? We're supposed to take people to jail.
Like the rest.
It's not, we're not supposed to, remember, there's a difference in probable cause for an arrest. There's a difference, probable cause for an indictment. And there's a difference in terms of what you need for a conviction. State law is about the arrest, not trying to have one, build a case that's beyond a reasonable doubt. That comes later. Does that make sense to you all? So we're going to follow the law a lot closer. And I think we're going to save lives. Anything else?
Chief, they wanted me to ask, we've had a recent number of carjackings where parents have left their kids in the car. Could charges be filed against the parents?
The charges could be filed against the parent. Absolutely. And that's something that we'll be looking at. You don't leave children in your car. And you don't leave children in your car with what running? I always say one of the best defenses in life to whatever you're dealing with is common sense and good judgment. Common sense and good judgment goes a long way into not being victimized. When you leave your house, what should you lock? Should you leave your garage door open? And then people, hey, I got burglarized. Really, where'd they break in? Well, I left my garage door opening when I went down the street to my neighbors. Common sense and good judgment. Well, let's help us help you, right? So, anything else? En español?
Yes, sir.
¿Por afuera o aquí? Happy New Year, everybody.